Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you a video talking about my top 20 favorite wrestlers of all time. Yes, we're going to be talking about wrestling in this video. A subject that hasn't come up nearly enough on my channel. I think I reviewed an episode of Raw a couple of years ago or something like that. But really, I've never really tried to incorporate it onto my YouTube, how I probably should, honestly. Because wrestling, no matter what you think of it, it's been a big part of my entire life. I've loved wrestling since I was a little kid, as early as I can remember. It's still one of my main passions. I got my TV shows, my movies, horror. Right alongside that is wrestling, in a very, very big way. And I still care a lot about it nowadays, despite it sort of going down the tubes a bit here and there, but you still got a lot of great talent nowadays. So I still pay attention and everything. So yeah, this is going to be a very difficult list to make. I always knew, I've known for a long time who my two all-time favorites are. But after that, it was really difficult to make. I could probably still shift a couple of them around for sure. And I'm sure I'm gonna get some kind of weird random comment saying wrestling is fake, this video is stupid, whatever. Yes, I know wrestling is fake. It is predetermined, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still a lot of effort, time, and skill that's put into professional wrestling. And if you think there's no risk and no actual injuries that can happen, you have no idea. It's just entertaining, and I've loved it my whole life. So enjoy this video if you do too, or if at least to respect it, or if not, just please click off now, because we're going to discuss a pretty crazy list here. And that is because there's going to be a good number of wrestling characters and figures and stuff like that are going to be on this list. A couple you'll scratch your heads, a couple you'll go, what the hell, what's he doing on here? I'm sure there's going to be a couple that you think, okay, if they're on there, then why the hell aren't so-and-so on there too? But this is my personal list. Feel free to make yours below, not top 20, maybe just like top 5 or top 10 or something. But these are the ones who have made an impact on me, who I've enjoyed watching the most over the years. And I'll probably do a separate video a little bit later on, discussing my top 5-10 female wrestlers of all time as well. So yeah, let's get right into it. Here's a little hint of things to come. Alright, so number 20. Before we get to number 20 though, I did want to go over a couple honorable mentions, and those include a few that were very close to making it to this list, but not quite when I made my final decision. I'm sure there's others I'm going to forget to mention that I would like to have. But yeah, one is going to be, this one's kind of controversial, but I did have to mention at least Chris Benoit. Now, of course, this is controversial because of how his life ended, with the whole, unfortunate murder-suicide of his wife and son. A very, very dark event, and I'm not trying to defend him at all, although I think a lot of it was a lot of the trauma he went through, physically and everything. But I'm not defending that in any way. But he was still one of the all-time best in the ring, just in terms of technical prowess and everything like that. He could work with anyone. So I just think he's one of the all-time best talents when it came to pure wrestling in the ring. So I did want to mention him at least. Another is AJ Styles. Not going to deny he's one of the best wrestlers in the world today. He can really almost put on a great match with anyone. His personality's become a little bit bigger over the years, so I think that's good. It's great to finally see him in WWE these past couple of years. From TNA and everything else. He's just, again, undeniably one of the all-time best. Y2J, Chris Jericho, another one of the greatest workers of all time. He also has a great mind for the business. I enjoy listening to his podcasts and everything that he does like that. Seems to be a great guy. Another one is is one that some people are gonna shake their heads at, but I did want to mention the Boogeyman. I was just really entertained by the Boogeyman character, those few years ago. Again, being a horror fan, that probably contributed to it. I know he wasn't really the best in the ring. His best move was a scoop slam, basically, or a power slam. But I think his character, I like the theatrics of it. I thought it was actually kind of cool. So I wanted to mention the Boogeyman. And then my last honorable mention is going to be Yokozuna, who was on my list at one point, just got pushed out a little bit at the end. But I think he worked really well as one of those intimidating big men. Now he really did get oversized during his last few years, but of course a part of the very big Inoue family. That includes The Rock, Rikishi, and everything like that. But he had a presence to him, and I don't really think you can deny that. So yeah, last honorable mention is Yokozuna. Now on to the actual list. So here we go, guys. Alright, number 20, I'm sure is going to be in a lot of people's top 5s. This is probably even number 1 for some people. But my number 20 is going to be Shawn Michaels. That's right, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Really one of the greatest in-ring talents of all time. Again, I'm going to say that about a lot of people on this list. But really, his persona, kind of transcended, and from his days pictured here to his matches with the Undertaker at WrestleMania a few years ago, some of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. Super kick, everything like that. It's really hard to put anyone above him, honestly, and I at least had to put him on this list. Now I'm not going to get too into like backstage, rumors or how we hear about how certain wrestlers are or were. There's plenty of shit like that, spread out around the internet and everything like that of what so and so thinks of who, and this little stories are told and such. I did hear that Shawn Michaels had quite the ego back in the day, along with Hulk Hogan and stuff like that. But that doesn't take away from what he actually did for the business. And again, Shawn Michaels, just what he could do in the ring, it's unlike anyone else. And I've also heard he's matured over the past couple decades anyway. So yeah, my number 20 is going to be Shawn Michaels, and then number 19 is going to be, for me anyway, personally, Rhino. Rhino, of course, being known for his run in ECW, and then he eventually went to WWE, and then he was even in TNA for a little bit, and now he's in WWE again, although very, very sparingly, unfortunately. He teamed with Heath Slater, and we haven't really seen much from him since. But yeah, he's actually from Michigan, which is where I live, so that's one thing. But I've always enjoyed Rhino. It's funny that his biggest runs is probably ECW, but TNA for a little bit of time actually tried to push him as a main event talent for themselves. And I think it actually worked. I was actually really happy to see that. I remember watching that, him winning the title from Jeff Jarrett at Bound for Glory and everything. Is was working the Monsters Ball with like Jeff Hardy and Abyss and Samoa Joe, Monty Brown, stuff like that. It was good to see that actually happen for him. I wish it would have lasted longer, but it was good to see at least once. Gore, I think he has, he's probably in the top 5 for best spears I've ever seen, for sure. So yeah, number 19 is going to be Rhino. And I can't talk for that long about everyone, otherwise this video is going to be an hour long. But yeah, my number 19 is Rhino. And my number 18 is going to be Samoa Joe. Another guy that came from TNA. He's been wrestling for a very long time. WWE like you to think that, he's nothing until he gets to the big leagues, WWE. But Joe, he's one of the best workers these days. Kind of like AJ Styles, I mentioned earlier. Just the work that this guy's put in all over the place. His ferocity, his just his ruthless aggression, right? He's obviously a big guy. He doesn't have like the typical physique that you'd think But he's one of the most athletic, his strikes, and again, just his ferocity is really just contributes to a great, package for what a great wrestler should be. And he's also very skilled technically with his submissions, his chokeholds, stuff like that. He's currently feuding, ironically, with AJ Styles on SmackDown. And AJ has had the title for a while, so I'm kind of hoping Joe is the one to finally take it from him, if anyone. He definitely deserves to carry a world title in WWE. But how great is it that, after all these years, Samoa Joe and AJ are one of the main feuds in WWE? That's awesome. Alright, yeah, number 18 is Samoa Joe. Number 17 is Mark Henry. I've always been a fan of Mark Henry from Sexual Chocolate days to Hall of Pain, everything like that. He's always just seemed like such a nice guy outside of it, really down to earth and everything. I won't deny, I'm a fan of some of the bigger built wrestlers and stuff like that sometimes. And Mark Henry, I think, was a prime example of that. He did hold a world title, and I liked his whole Hall of Pain gimmick. Sometimes they tried to make him into more of a joke, with when he was dressed in all red and stuff like that. They tried to make you take him a little bit less seriously. Then all of a sudden you're supposed to buy into him destroying everybody. But he was definitely at his best doing that. And I think he was a little bit overlooked when he was going through that character portrayal. But yeah, Mark Henry is a Hall of Famer already. I think they should have held off on that a little bit. They should wait a few years before they induct someone, instead of doing it right when they retire. But Mark Henry still, number 17, he is. So number 17 is Mark Henry. And number 16 is going to be Rikishi. Yep, Rikishi is another one of my all-time. Oops. Oh, that's what happens. Anyway, Rikishi is another one of my all-time favorites, again, from the same family as Rock, Yokozuna, different guys like that. Not only was he a pretty talented big man, but he had a personality to go along with it. The whole dancing thing was too cool and stuff like that. It oddly sort of got over with the crowd. And then he did the bonsai drop like Yokozuna, and he also had his trademark stink face and everything like that. I just really enjoyed him. I thought he was always a lot of fun to watch, and he had a couple serious stints where you could actually root for him. He was a pretty solid Intercontinental Champion at one point. I didn't really care for his heel run, the whole running Stone Cold over thing. I did it for The Rock and stuff like that. It wasn't his best, which is why they return him to his usual shtick, a year or so later. But I've always liked Rikishi. He seems like another really nice guy as well. Of course, him being the father of the Usos. It's been good to see him make a couple appearances over the years lately. He's in the Hall of Fame now, which is great. Number 16 is Rikishi. And you guys already seen this, but number 15 is going to be Goldberg. Bill Goldberg, of course. This is his biggest highlight. His biggest stint was definitely in WCW. Taking it by storm, with going after the NWO and Hulk Hogan and everything like that. Being mixed in with Sting. Then he had his run in WWE in the early 2000s. Kind of feuding with Triple H, Evolution, and then, that WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar, which they sort of redeemed, just this past year or two. Bill Goldberg, he actually had some ring talent too. If you go back and watch some of his earlier matches, you'll see him throwing, drop kicks once in a while, stuff like that, and the crowd really, they bought into him, they got behind him. That controversial William Regal match, you can still see that he could, have some decent submission maneuvers if he was actually deciding to go for that. But he's more so known for his big bursts of just ferocity and just power. In my opinion, in his prime anyway, Goldberg had probably the best spear I've seen. Just in terms of how impactful it looked and everything. It was good to see him come back and embarrass Brock Lesnar recently as well. Not quite, as on point as he used to be, but, still good to see him back for sure. I hope he makes another appearance down the road. So, number 15 is definitely Goldberg. And number 14 is going to be probably the first, these next two are probably going to be ones that people will shake their heads at, or probably flip out over, but number 14 for me is honestly John Cena. That's right. I hope you can see this picture because you can't really see him, so I don't know what you guys are looking at there. But John Cena, no matter if he's your favorite or not, you can't deny the impact he's had on this business. He's probably the biggest face of today's generation of wrestling. Yeah, he was sort of forced on us a few years ago, but now we all miss Cena, with this Roman Reigns thing going on lately, which is why that promo Cena cut against Reigns earlier on was so great, telling him he's still here because he can't do his job. But Cena, we don't need to talk about Roman Reigns right now, but Cena, he has talent. I think he's a little bit overlooked or sort of held back in terms of that sometimes because they give him this moveset, all these signature moves, 5 moves of doom they want him to do, right? Which he does, but once in a while, like not too long ago, his matches with AJ Styles, you'll see him bust out some pretty good stuff, which means he has talent sort of buried there that they don't really let him pull out all that often, but he has a great personality as well. All the Make-A-Wish stuff he did, he seems to be a great guy. You've heard different things about him, in backstage stories and stuff like that, but again, we can't really know those things for sure. But he's definitely great with his fans, and he's one of the best on the mic. Top 5, maybe top 10 all-time best talkers in wrestling. He definitely has a lot of passion. He's very adaptable. So I think I at least give Cena some credit, even if you don't really get as high on him as some people do. So number 14 is John Cena. And number 13, this one people probably question even more so, but for me this is a guy that I really enjoyed watching. A few years ago now. It's unfortunately he never went further than he did, and that is Ryback. That's right, Ryback, the big guy. Feed me more. He's my 13th favorite wrestler of all time. I actually considered putting him higher, but it's because they never fully went all the way with him that I kind of have to keep him a little bit lower. But nonetheless, Ryback, I think he was very overlooked and underutilized for his time. I always thought he had a lot of energy. He reminded me sort of like an Ultimate Warrior kind of thing, with the energy he'd put into just like running around the ring with his clotheslines and stuff like that. Except maybe even faster, I don't know. But he got the crowd behind him for a time too. He could move his shoulders, and he could get the whole arena chanting "Feed me more." So he was over. You guys can't deny that. But even Chris Jericho has said they probably should have given him the title when he wrestled CM Punk in that Hell in a Cell match, and they really could have set him up for the next while. But they never did. They never fully went for it. They screwed him over. Then they had him get attacked by the Shield. Then they turned him heel. They had John Cena beat him, and then they almost brought him back to it again, but then they screwed up again. WWE is just very notorious for dropping the ball. And nowadays, they seem like they're doing it with Braun Strowman again now, so I don't know. But Ryback, I just always enjoyed watching him in the ring. He had a lot of really good-looking, power moves and stuff like that. And I know there's the whole heat between him and CM Punk and everything. I'm not really going to go into that too much, but I also do listen to some of the podcasts Ryback has done as well. He seems to be a really down-to-earth, cool guy. I think he has a pretty good mind for it and understanding. He still does independent wrestling shows and everything nowadays. It'd be kind of cool to meet him. So, number 13 for me personally is Ryback. Maybe I think about more, he could honestly be a little bit higher. But, so number 13 for now is Ryback. And number 12, the rated R superstar Edge. Another guy that was gone too soon. He was kind of forced to retire because of an injury that could have eventually left him paralyzed. But probably one of the best heels, definitely, of the past couple decades. He could be face and people would get behind him. Another guy that's probably in the top 10 in terms of mic skills. He could really get behind him. His story with Lita, of course, is what it was. But then he had his team, of course, ENC, him and Christian. One of the better tag teams of the past couple decades for sure as well. The matches with the Hardys, the Dudleys. His feud with Cena probably went on a little bit too long, but he definitely had some great moments there. And like I said, he could work as a face too. And now he's into acting. He's on Haven on Sci-Fi. He even has a role on Vikings right now, which is really cool to see. And yeah, he's another one that is just a great mind for the business. I like listening to him and Christian's podcasts that they do pretty frequently. So yeah, 12 is Edge. And 11 is going to be Sting, the Icon Scorpion. Of course, making a name for himself in WCW, from not just his days as the Crow, but, when he had the blonde spiky hair and everything like that, to his whole, red face paint Wolfpack look. He was even in TNA for a time as well. Finally brought into WWE, a couple of years ago. In my opinion, something else they dropped the ball on. They had him randomly lose his WrestleMania match with Triple H, and then he's unfortunately injured in his match with Seth Rollins, which he also lost, and he is kind of forced to sort of silently retire after that, which is really unfortunate. But Sting, Steve Borden, another one of those great minds in the business, and respect, to him not coming to WWE for all those years. It was understandable why he didn't. He did some really good work in TNA as well. And I liked, at first, when they brought him into WWE, it was really working. Him arriving to take down the Authority, I thought was a great and obvious setup. But again, they just didn't really go through with it the way they should have. But, I have a Sting DVD set, and even just watching his matches in the early 90s and, late 80s and stuff like that when he was, before he was the Crow. He just had a lot of energy, a lot of charisma in the ring. He'd make the simplest, even then, he'd make the simplest move into something the crowd could get behind from his punches, to rebounding someone off the ropes into a military press or something. He was just great to watch. And then when he became the Crow, of course, kind of the movie thing, it was just perfect to fit like a glove. Him being this like outcast vigilante type thing, it's just a character I can really get into. So yeah, he could really get a good match out of anyone as well. And he's one of the ones who kind of circulates around conventions, so I'm kind of hoping I get lucky enough to meet him someday. I missed him in Detroit last year, unfortunately, but so yeah, number 11 is going to be Sting. And number 10 is going to be CM Punk. I mentioned him a little bit ago, but I think he's definitely one of the best of today's generation, especially in WWE. Again, one of those guys that's probably in the top 10 of all-time best on the mic. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him at Chicago C2E2 convention this past year. He's a really cool guy in person. I'm really down to earth, and I asked him about a certain favorite of mine as well. He's really good to talk to. I know a lot of people are talking about his UFC MMA stuff right now, but no matter if he wins or loses, I certainly wouldn't have the balls to go in there and take on people like that. So I think that's something on its own. He was always really good, pretty consistent in the ring. And again, just this mic work is legendary. He'd really feel like he was speaking for himself and his real thoughts and everything, which he kind of was. And him and John Cena's matches were some of the very best going at the time, and also his work with Daniel Bryan, of course. It's great to see him and AJ are still together as well. So yeah, number 10 is going to be CM Punk. And number 9 is going to be CM Punk, and these next two are all very, very close, so I could probably rotate them around a little bit if I wanted to. But number 9 for now, I think I'm going with number 9 I'm going with for now, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, of course, Raw general manager of Lee's, coming back to make another ring return in the company. In my opinion, possibly the very best in the ring in terms of technicality and submission and stuff like that. possibly the best ever. He was a natural fit, his persona on the mic and everything. Just how his personality came through as a sports entertainer, right? Triple H has talked about before how quickly Kurt Angle was able to adapt to that. Legitimate Olympic gold medalist, legitimate wrestler. There's stories about him and Brock Lesnar, wrestling behind the scenes and Kurt actually taking him down and stuff like that, which makes sense when you think about it. And now he just seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. He's had issues, with drinking and everything over the years, but it really seems like he's made a great comeback for himself. He did some pretty good work in TNA as well, even though we're not supposed to talk about that. WWE would like you to think that he was just not wrestling all those years when he was away from the company. But yeah, you could. He was the butt of a lot of jokes in WWE as well, which is always funny. But at the same time, you could take him as a legitimate badass when they let him. Him going after Mark Henry, sort of in his last WWE run around 2006 and everything. He's just great to watch, a great worker. He could honestly have a good match with anyone. Some of my favorite matches of all time are with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's matches with The Rock are always really good, with Eddie Guerrero. He had a great WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar. Their feud was actually really, really cool to see. So yeah, number 9 for me is Kurt Angle. And number 8 is going to be Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, the Viper, the Apex Predator. Yep, RKO out of nowhere. Randy Orton is my number 9. Number 8, excuse me. I've always just really liked Randy Orton. I think some of his best days are probably when he was leading. Why do I suddenly forget the group's name? But he was with Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. Legacy, that's it. Okay. But yeah, I liked his heel run with Triple H and everything, and he's really a natural heel. I think that's what he enjoys doing the most. And of course his days with Evolution when he first started, and he really came into his own a few years into that, despite some inconsistent booking. Then when he became the Viper, really just took off, from then to now. So I think he's a really, really consistent and smooth worker. Some people think he needs to add more moves, maybe, but he's still one of the smoothest guys I've seen in the ring, and just the way he goes from his spinning slams and stuff like that. RKO out of nowhere, it's great. It's one of the most exciting sort of getting me into moves. You can see, and just how he can do. He can sort of turn different moves and counter into the RKO. That's always awesome to see. I remember him beating John Cena in a tables match with that. That was awesome. I know there's been some controversy around his character, a few years ago, but. And I know he's had some instances with fans as well, but those were kind of just pestering him at a gym and everything. So he seems to be a nice guy when you actually don't act like a nuisance to him. Maybe, I don't know. I've always just enjoyed his work. Some people think he's a bit dull on the mic, but I think he, again, probably when he's a heel, he can really get into it. And I think he makes a legitimate, sort of tough, badass, face as well. And I think he's a little bit underrated with that. He's had great matches all over the place, his feud with Cena when he was a heel kind of did drag on a little bit, but, it still is what it was. Christian was a bit gypped during this feud, but him and Christian still had some legitimately great matches. Him and Kane, and you could pretty much name anyone. Him and Styles not too long ago. Him and Bobby Roode even recently, and I am liking his feud with Jeff Hardy right now. I could just go on and on about Randy Orton. So yeah, number 8 is going to be Randy Orton. Number 7 is going to be Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero, Lie, Cheat, Steal. Eddie, one of the all-time best in the ring, like Kurt Angle. One of my all-time favorite matches is theirs for the title. Eddie is just sorely missed. I remember when my mom woke us up one morning and told us Eddie Guerrero died. That was just very, very shocking and very sad. He just had a great, larger-than-life personality. He just oozed charisma. Everyone loved him. I loved him. Again, one of the most technically skilled guys ever. Also a really good high flyer. One of the best personalities you'll ever see. And there's just something unmatched about Eddie. You know, in a lot of ways, he is number one, honestly. Yeah, it would have been great if he was still around nowadays. You know, see him wrestle some of these other, really talented guys that have come up over the past few years. But he's definitely left his mark on the business for sure, and he'll always be missed. So yeah, number 7 is Eddie Guerrero for sure. I almost put him higher, but he's definitely there, no question about it. So yeah, number 6 is going to be Triple H. Yeah, Paul Levesque, authority nowadays and everything, sort of the next guy to take over after Vince McMahon. Again, another one of those guys that have had some different stories told about him, about behind the scenes and everything, but nonetheless, Triple H, you can't deny it. He's always been a really great wrestler. From his Hunter Hearst Helmsley days to when he really became the game, Triple H, in my opinion, one of the best heels of all time. From his Evolution days, to the late '90s and early 2000s. Of course, before Evolution, doing that, the whole Helmsley regime and everything like that. But at the same time, he's also another one of those guys who could easily just transition into a badass face as well. The crowd can get behind, and his promo on Raw recently about wanting to be at the game again, facing Undertaker, in September one more time. I forget if it's September or October we're doing that Super Show. Anyway. And again, like a few people I've mentioned in this video, one of the all-time best guys on the mic, probably in the top 10. He could always just take him really seriously. And it's great to see that he seems to be the main hand in bringing in some of these independent wrestlers and really integrating them into the company. Big force behind the whole NXT thing. It's great to see him being so open-minded like that, more so than his father-in-law, it seems. But yeah, Triple H, he's definitely a figurehead and cornerstone of wrestling of the past couple decades. So yeah. And we're into the top 5 now. Hopefully not too much longer. I'm going to try and finish this video within 10 or so minutes. It's already over 30. But yeah, number 5 is going to be Jeff Hardy. Charismatic enigma, brother to Matt Hardy. Personally, he's always been one of my all-time favorites. I've always loved watching him. He did some really good work in TNA for a time as well. Despite the whole, Sting incident, which, he himself regrets. But from his earlier days, teaming with the Mattas, the Hardy Boys, to a very successful and really awesome singles run when he was still in WWE, feud with CM Punk. He had some really good matches with Shelton Benjamin, John Morrison. He even beat Triple H, which is really great to see. Now he's back. He's having a pretty solid feud with Randy Orton, and then he did his whole Brother Nero thing. We'll see if that makes a comeback. I hope they push him more as a single star one way or another, though. Of course, complete daredevil. I'm doing swanton bombs off of anything from different heights. It's great to see. But he's also a really good wrestler just in the ring, too. And he's always been really easy for the crowd to relate to and get behind. And yeah, he's had trouble with, drugs and stuff like that over the years. But it really seems like he's cleaned himself off and pulled himself back up. I think he has kids nowadays and stuff like that. A story I've always felt for him for, his house had burned down at one point, his dog was in there, and I don't want to talk too much about that right now, but I've always just found Jeff to be very easily relatable, and just one of those guys that are really easy to root for. And when he came back with, Matt a year or two ago now, that was really cool. Honestly, Jeff Hardy match is one of the easiest guys for me just to watch at any time, and I can just sit and enjoy it. So, number 5 is Jeff Hardy. And now number 4 is going to be the Phenom, the Undertaker himself, the dead man, Mark Calaway. One of the all-time greats for sure. His persona, his character, really, really large in life. No one is going to be like him again. He's left a legacy that's never going to be extinguished. I don't think they should have ever ended the streak. But still, that hasn't completely taken away from the mark he's left on the business. He's a leader, in the locker room. You hear all these stories about him, keeping order and everything like that. He even has, a pull with, Vince of what he wants and everything, just because of how big of a commodity he's always been. And, it's funny, he's been around for so long, since the 90s. Before that, before he became the Undertaker too. But he's been around for so long, yet, again, those matches with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, they're some of the best I've ever seen. And, that wasn't all that long ago. So he can still really do some great work, and it's just admirable to see that he's still going, still trucking along. And still, making some special moments with fans for sure. And he seems to be a really nice guy when he is out of the character as well. Of course, married to Michelle McCool and stuff. But yeah, there's just no denying the Undertaker has held up better than pretty much anyone. So number 4 is the Undertaker. And we're into the top 3 now. My top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. And number 3 is going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Texas Rattlesnake. Austin 316 just whooped your damn ass. And that was my best impression. That just took a nosedive. Anyway, wrestling, Austin's one of those guys, like The Undertaker, like Triple H, and like the guy I'm going to talk about next. It just wouldn't be what it is without him. Along with Hulk Hogan as well, but Austin, he's one of the best on the mic of all time as well. Just this whole rebel sort of going against Vince McMahon. It's what brought WWF back against WCW. He is just the perfect character for the crowd to root for, violence or, rebellious and everything like that. Yeah, at the same time, he felt oddly like an everyman too, in a way. And I listen to his podcasts all the time, getting his different thoughts on what's going on in WWE lately. He has a great, great mind for the business, and I really agree with a lot of his perspective on things. I've even watched some action movies he's done, over the past 10 years or so. He's really easy to buy kind of as an action star, too. Even though he's not really doing that anymore lately, but Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's the Mount Rushmore, part of the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, really. And I could easily talk about him and go on and on about Austin, Stone Cold, right? But yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin is number 3. And now my top 2 favorite wrestlers of all time. These two have been very definitive for a long time, and I'm happy to finally talk about them. My second favorite wrestler of all time, almost number 1, but number 2 for now, is The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Of course, he's one of the most profitable actors in Hollywood now, but also People's Champion, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, and still is The Rock. Again, electric, right? I think he is the best on the mic of all time. He left the company, and he can come back 10 years later, and he'll just grab a mic and just be as captivating as he always was. Guy that could pull, an insult out of the top of his, the back of his head or whatever, and just go with it, and the crowd could get behind it. And yeah, he could have this stare, and it'd feel kind of intense. The Rock, maybe not like a Kurt Angle in the ring necessarily, but I still always thought he was a pretty good wrestler. The way he would move, it was just really smooth, and just really like, whoa. He just bring a certain stigma with him that they carry with him from arena to arena. You can't really match The Rock, and it was good to see him come back and beat John Cena as well. But of course, they had to have him come back again so John Cena could win. There's just no denying that The Rock, he succeeded on a lot of levels in his life, and he's a really inspiring guy nowadays. And I'm just really happy that I got to see a lot of it. So yeah, number 2 is The Rock. I could talk for an hour about The Rock on his own, but I'm trying to hold back right now. But yeah. Yeah, his matches with Kurt Angle are some of my very favorites. And now my number one, my favorite wrestler of all time, is going to be Kane. That's right, the Big Red Machine, the Big Red Monster, Devil's favorite demon, whatever you want to call him. Kane, from his days with Paul Bearer, to the Brothers of Destruction and everything like that. He's been my favorite wrestler since I've started watching wrestling. Of course, me loving horror movies, I automatically like this, Big Red Monster, right? But I always thought he was, fairly athletic for a big man as well. Always liked flying clothesline and everything like that. Also pretty good on the mic when they let him be. And it's good that he's actually done horror movies, See No Evil stuff and everything. I keep periodically talking about, dirt sheets, basically, or different, sort of, unsavory stories I hear about certain people. I've honestly never heard one bad thing about Kane. I've never heard anyone say one bad thing about Glenn Jacobs. I've always just heard that he's such a nice, reasonable guy and everything like that. Sasuke's love, working on the movie with him. And really any little thing you see about people talking about the business, I say, yeah, Glenn was always really nice or easy to work with and stuff like that. So that just makes my heart happy. I'd kill to meet him. Just his presence, it was unlike anyone. I think he was one of the best monsters of wrestling of all time, for sure. And, he only had 2 world titles. He has about, 13, tag team title reigns, but only 2 world titles. One, he lost the next night, with Steve Austin and everything. And he had a decent world title reign around 2010. I always thought he should have had more. And, of course, his look right here, before he unmasked, when he was teaming with RVD and feuding with Evolution and Triple H, I actually thought it was pretty good, minus the, Katie Vick thing. I always thought they sort of misdirected that or handled that the wrong way. They should have had Kane come back around after he unmasked and beat Triple H for the world title, or never lost the mask to begin with. Who knows? So I think they definitely could have made him an even bigger star than he was. But he still had the crowd behind him for quite a while there, and you have to respect Kane. He still had a major impact on the business, and I own a DVD set of him. I want to get more posters and shirts, and I don't know. There's just something about Kane that I've always liked, and I think he goes above anyone else, at least for me. He did beat Triple H for the Continental title in a chain match. I've watched that match 5 times, 5-10 times probably. I could watch him work with anyone, even his matches with the Great Khali. I know a lot of people don't like, but I'll watch that and still be entertained just seeing Kane again. And the whole Team Hell No thing was actually entertaining. Corporate Kane was kind of entertaining, but let's just get back to the Demon. Now he's the mayor of Knox County, which is great, and I'm really happy for him. I'm proud. He seems like a really smart guy. But now all I hope for is him returning at least one more time, giving him a good send-off, and Hall of Fame induction is all I ask for. So yeah, my favorite wrestler of all time is definitely Kane. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this long video. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.